Alright, hello, and welcome back to another episode of Higurashi When They Cry, Chapter 1. Alright. The road led me deeper into the forest. Wasn't I getting farther away from the village the more I ran? I lost more and more of my composure the more I thought about it. But despite this realization, my inner self was still disturbingly calm. So you see, I vowed that if there was someone struggling like Satoshi-kun did, I'd save them. I don't want to see anyone transfer out again. Damn it! What does transfer even mean? I won't let you transfer me. I won't end up the same as Satoshi. Come on, Keiichi-kun, talk to me. I'll be able to understand you, Keiichi-kun. I'm your ally. I started wheezing out of breath. My lungs were so hot that they felt like they were going to explode, and my heart was beating as hard as it possibly could. I should have practiced running instead of my swing. I couldn't even afford to scoff at that stupid thought. If Keiichi-kun doesn't have anything to worry about, he'll go back to normal. Everyone will be back to being friends, and we can enjoy club activities again. Next time, we'll team up and beat Mi-chan. Yeah, how much fun that would be. Reina couldn't even imagine how much I had wished I could turn back the clock on these past few days. You could be nicer to me again, too. I want to go searching for treasure again. This time, I'll prepare a nice lunch. Actually, we could just go right now. Let's go up to the dam site together. I'll show you the cute things I just found. I'm sure you'll like it too. My footsteps made pathetic flapping sounds as my legs wobbled and faltered. Hot on my heels, Reina's steps were sharply breaking twigs underfoot. I had to accept it. I was on the run being chased by Reina. If she caught me, it was all over. I realized it instinctively. I couldn't even begin to think of what the end would entail. Just that if I was caught, it was all over. That's all I knew. It didn't matter how it was going to end. I wouldn't let it end. Not without knowing anything. Not yet! That momentary lapse was all it took. Of all the things that could have happened, my knees buckled underneath me and I crumbled towards the ground. I tried to stand frantically, urging my legs to respond. I used my bat as a makeshift cane to prop myself up, but Reina was already standing right in front of me. Compared to me, out of breath and utterly exhausted, Reina was so cool and composed that she could have froze the air around her. She wasn't breathing hard at all. Rather, I couldn't even sense if her heart was beating. Are you afraid of something, I wonder? It's not like you to tremble, Keiichi-kun. Ha 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 ha. Her expression looked almost affectionate. Those soulless eyes, that mask of affection. As she admonished me for trembling, Reina's hands deftly slipped over her head. The blur of arms as they moved made me feel as if I was staring at the godliness of the thousand-armed Buddha. Then, as both of her hands met above her head, the axe that she held came into focus. I stared up in disbelief. It was all I could do. Tell me, what happened to Satoshi? Reina stayed like that with that axe raised above her head and solemnly opened her mouth. It was as if she was expressing a farewell to a friend she was never to see again. That cruel scenario resided somewhere in her actions. I told you, Satoshi-kun transferred out. Enough of that transfer crap. It means demoned away. It means demoned away, doesn't it? Doesn't it? You can tell me now, can't you? Who made Satoshi disappear? Was it you? Mion? Or someone in the village? Answer me! I became frantic the more I screamed, but Reina did nothing but maintain the smile frozen on her face. I have no idea what Keiichi-kun is talking about. Then I'll say in a way so you do. Who is the perpetrator of this chain of mysterious deaths? You seem to be confused, Keiichi-kun. What? There is no human perpetrator. Everything is by Oyashiro-sama's will. Isn't Oyashiro-sama's curse just a superstition? You believe in that too? It's not about believing or not. Oyashiro-sama exists. Period. Reina's gaze grew even more gelid. The ferocity of her stare was so intense, not allowing me to question anything. There's just no way that something like Oyashiro-sama could exist. You don't believe in Oyashiro-sama? There's no way I could believe it. There's no way it could exist. It exists. Oyashiro-sama exists. Keiichi-kun should have felt it personally. I've never felt something like that. Keiichi-kun, haven't you felt someone apologizing to you before? Constantly? On top of that? All noise from the outside world disappeared. Only Reina's voice resounded loudly and terribly. You see, until you forgive them, they'll always be with you. At school, at home, at your bedside. I couldn't understand what Reina was saying. It came to me too. Oyashiro-sama did. That's why I transferred and came back to Hinamizawa. I don't understand. I don't understand. What does transfer even mean? That was Reina saying. Hasn't Oyashiro-sama come to you as well, Keiichi-kun? I'm probably the only one who you can confide in. I won't let you transfer out, okay? Ha 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 ha. Reina's demented laughter clanged around inside my head. Was Reina saying Oyashiro-sama came to her as well? That's right. Last night, I had heard about that when I asked about Reina. Please keep this confidential. Also, part of this may be speculation. Not all of it may be true. Are you still interested? Oyashi-san began speaking. Neither the victims nor the school filed a complaint, so there's no preliminary report. Basically, the police hadn't intervened in this matter. So all these details are just what I'd heard from those involved. Meaning, it's not that credible. You said there were victims? Didn't Reina just break all the windows? No. Reina Ryugu attacked 3 boys, using a metal bat. 2 of them made it out with only bruises, but the other had been injured so badly that one of his eyes was permanently damaged. Wouldn't that be considered assault? Shouldn't the police have arrested her? For whatever reason, the victim never pressed charges. There was no report to the police, so they were beaten with a bat and suffered significant injuries. Normally there would be a criminal investigation, but why didn't they press charges? I tried asking the 3 male victims for their side of the story, but they all were reluctant. It's hard to say, but they were all afraid. Even after she transferred schools. Oishi-san, could you summarize it starting from the beginning? Reina hit people while she broke the windows. Or was it she started breaking the windows after she got bored of hitting people? They sounded similar, but the meanings were drastically different. On an undisclosed date, Reina Ryugu was conversing with 3 male students, close friends of hers, near the pool storage shed. Who were those 3? I can't reveal their names, but they were close to Reina Ryugu. It seems they were a group of her friends. She was the lone girl in their group. So it wasn't that strange that the 4 of them were together. So what happened? I don't know the reason why. She took the baseball team's bat that was in the pool storage shed and beat the 3 of them down, one after the other. What? There were no witnesses. This was an account pieced together by the information given at the time of the incident. One day after school, Reina and the 3 male students were at the pool storage shed talking together. They weren't seeking help, rather, they usually met up there. It appears that it became a heated discussion. At that time, Reina underwent a change. The change was so abrupt that the 3 of them didn't comprehend what was happening. Then, taking the metal bat, she attacked her friends one after the other. Leaving her friends covered in blood with gashes on their head, she made her way towards the school building. Then she broke the glass windows one after the other. A few minutes later, a teacher appeared on scene and subdued her. What was this change Reina underwent? What matches up in the statements from the 3 was a sudden change. The point that there was a transformation. Transformation? I also could recall Reina's transformation. I'd seen that change many times before. It was so different from the usual Reina that I couldn't help but believe it was someone else who looked like Reina. That transformation they were talking about, had it happened before? No. There was nothing like that. As far as I could find out in her medical history and past, there was nothing like that. Does that happen often? Where people change suddenly like Reina did? Of course it does. There are plenty of psychological phenomena that could cause something like that. Then, you're saying there was a dormant element in Reina that caused that transformation? I cannot say that for certain. But according to the statements of her friends, it's hard to believe she had such a side to her. Kind, caring, and adorable. Even before she transferred here, she was probably pretty popular in school like she was now. That girl transforming suddenly and assaulting them with a bat, who could imagine such a thing? Nobody could have seen it coming. I myself sometimes believed that I was mistaken for thinking that Reina even now. Then, what happened after that? There was a hospital right across from the school, so the 3 of them were carried in and treated quickly. What about Reina? What about the police? Why wasn't there a criminal investigation? You see, the police can't get involved unless they're called. Even though one was badly injured with permanent damage? Why didn't they file charges? That's what caught my attention as well. Either some threat or pressure was placed on them, or they had a reason they couldn't file charges, even if they wanted to. We're talking about you, after all. Of course you looked into it, didn't you? Well, yeah. But I told you at the beginning, didn't I? That the victims were all very reluctant to talk. They didn't want to touch on the matter, or rather, they didn't want to be involved. Reluctant to talk. Didn't want to touch it. Didn't want to be involved. It resembled the villagers here in Oyashiro-sama's curse. Did the teacher at that school tell you anything? A school is hallowed ground. You could say they tend to keep the scandals under wraps. I didn't have a search warrant, so I tread lightly, you see. Then, there was no comment from the school. No. They denied the incident ever happened. It's just, the 3 male students were carried in for blunt force trauma that day. That's all there was in the hospital records. The victims didn't speak. The school denied it happened. Then you don't know anything at all. Yeah. I know nothing other than the incident itself had taken place. The victims also wished this incident to be kept from the public. So if you and I both forget about it, Mayabara-san, then this incident will probably just fade away. For a brief period, we sat in silence. At first glance, it looked like a simple assault case. But that was just the tip of the iceberg. The depths were obscured by rolling waves, sinking quietly into the void, as if it never existed to begin with. After that, she was suspended by the school, and during that time, she underwent psychiatric counseling. Did you hear anything from that doctor? Again, They were very professional in regards to their ethics, or at least very tight-lipped. Nothing even after you showed them your bandage? I was told to get a warrant. The badge itself has no legally binding authority after all. Then how did you know that Reina confessed that it was Oyashiro-sama who did it? There was a nurse I asked in that department. She agreed to help me just from showing her my bandage, or my badge. Then, what did she say? Turns out that the nurse hadn't heard everything. Apparently all that she remembered was that she overheard something from inside the room. The nurse said that at the time, Reina Ryugu was very calm and mild-mannered. It was more like she was confessing her sins at a church than a counseling session. She spoke with her mother there for some time of it. She spoke with her mother there for some of it. But partway through, her mother was asked to leave, so it became a private counseling session between just the doctor and Reina for a while. The part with Oyashiro-sama, when did that pop up? Partway through. She screamed the name suddenly. That startled the nurse, and that's why she started listening in. It was Oyashiro-sama! Reina suddenly shouted that. I had no idea what was said before that, so I have no idea what the meaning behind it could have been. The doctor, calmly and collectedly, asked Reina to have a seat. What is this Oyashiro-sama you speak of? Gently, ever so gently. The fundamentals of counseling were believing what you were told. Whoever abandons Hinamizawa will be hunted down by Oyashiro-sama, and they've finally gotten to me. That's the town you lived in before you moved here, isn't that right, Ryugu-san? I didn't want to move, but because of my mom and dad's circumstances, we had to. But Oyashiro-sama wouldn't allow it. Ryugu-san must have lots of friends in Hinamizawa. Even now you must be missing them dearly, don't you think? I want to go back to Hinamizawa. No, it's not that I want to go back. I have to go back. I should have gone back much sooner. But now it's too late. Oyashiro-sama has come. Oyashiro-sama is the name of the god in Hinamizawa, isn't that right? Everyone knows it's Hinamizawa's guardian deity, and if you ever try abandoning Hinamizawa by leaving, you'll incur his wrath. You had moved quite a while ago, didn't you? Then, it was just now that this god has arrived, is that what you're saying? You might not believe me, but Oyashiro-sama exists! That nurse was then asked by another nurse to do something and left the room. That was all she remembered. That it was Oyashiro-sama's doing, right? I do believe there is that kind of superstition in Hinamizawa, that if you leave the village, then you incur Oyashiro-sama's wrath. You should be familiar with this part, Mayabara-san. I knew very well that those scorned by the villaging herd, to hinder the dam construction project, they cursed the construction foreman to his death. Then the following year, Sotoku's parents, supporters and leading advocates for the dam, were cursed to their death. But this was the first time I've heard of the curse incurred by leaving the village. This is my first time hearing that. I can understand outside threats being cursed by the village, but why also villagers who leave? Normally people who leave villages aren't supposed to be cursed, right? I know it's a bit strange to say, but I could see it as a rule that the people who come in are the ones who would be cursed. Far from Jupiter, far from his thunder. Curses weren't something to chase after people that leave, were they? Oishi-san pondered for a bit over on the other end of the receiver, then began speaking again. Well, I told you of long ago when Hinamizawa was called Onigafuchi, didn't I? I recalled hearing that. Long ago, Hinamizawa was feared and respected as the village of ogres. The villagers at the foot of the mountains worshipped the ogres, so Onigafuchi was hallowed ground that you could never enter. It came to be said that if you entered carelessly, you were cursed by Oyashiro-sama. Those who set foot in Onigafuchi, in other words, Hinamizawa, would be cursed. I could understand that. I know that, but for leaving to also be no good? That's also the ogres, you see. They were being strictly watched by Oyashiro-sama so they would not enter into our world. In other words, Oyashiro-sama probably restricted interaction between Onegafuchi and the rest of the world. I see. I finally understood what sort of thing Oyashiro-sama was. So basically, Oyashiro-sama is more like a warden than a protectorate deity, I guess. Trying to keep this place isolated from the rest of the world. I guess that's how it would seem. I'm sorry, I don't know very much myself. This is mostly what was passed on to me from my grandmother. I could understand it a bit better if it was like that. Those who came to Hinamizawa would be cursed, and those who tried to leave would also be cursed. So, because Reina originally lived in Hinamizawa and moved away, she fulfilled the requirements for being cursed. So that means, because Reina moved away against its wishes, she was cursed by Oyashiro-sama. Is that what it adds up to? In short, that seems to be what it points to, I guess. As a matter of fact, soon afterwards they did move back to Hinamizawa after all. Those who abandoned Hinamizawa and left were cursed. But then, why only Reina? Shouldn't Reina's parents also have been guilty of the same transgression by moving away and have been cursed? Also in this day and age in Japan, shouldn't there be a lot of people coming and going? If every single one of them was cursed, then it'd be insane. But in reality, it wasn't that big of a deal at all. At most, there would be one person dying and one disappearing on the day of the Watanagashi. I don't like saying at most, though. Well, anyways, there's a lot I still don't know. Even if it was Oyashiro-sama's curse, it doesn't add up as to why her classmates, the victims who were beaten with the metal bat, wouldn't press charges. You don't think the victims were cowering because they believed that a terrible curse had befallen them, do you? Of course, I didn't want to believe it. But more importantly, I had just realized something else. There was another bizarre connection that Reina made between Oyashiro-sama's curse and metal bats. Satoshi fell victim to Oyashiro-sama's curse and went missing. I had recently learned that Satoshi had also become infatuated with the metal bat right before it disappeared, just like me. Then Reina as well. She was affected by Oyashiro-sama's curse. She confessed that much to the doctor. And the weapon which she had used at the time of that horrendous act was, again, a metal bat. And finally, me. I'd encountered various things that were inexplicable, and now I was holding onto a metal bat. I was shocked when I learned that Satoshi did the same thing. It couldn't be. Had the same happened to Reina? But there was one critical difference between her and Satoshi's case. That being, Satoshi went missing after falling victim to the curse, but Reina was still here. Both of them had fallen victim to Oyashiro-sama's curse, yet they were met with different endings. And finally, me. I couldn't call it a coincidence anymore. Reina, Satoshi, and finally, me. Could it be that I really was under Oyashiro-sama's curse right now? No, more importantly that, what should I do? Satoshi had been demoned away, vanishing without a trace. Reina was fine. Fine? Reina had undergone a change. I could only believe that there was something that wasn't Reina residing within her. And here, right now, it was standing before me. Reina, please tell me, what will happen to me? Reina stood imposingly, not answering. Satoshi disappeared, but Reina didn't disappear, so what will happen to me? I had never heard such an unpleasant laugh before. It had become akin to the sound of her breathing. It was no longer a voice or an expression of feeling. Don't worry, I'll save you. Reina took one step forward, still holding the axe high above her head. Now then, One step closer, Reina's face spread out to fill my vision. Speak! One step closer. Reina's nose was close enough to touch mine, and was still pushing closer. There's something you want to say, isn't there? I'll listen. I'll save you, okay? Speak, okay? Speak, okay? I slumped down, landing squarely on my butt. It wasn't for some pathetic reason. It was all I could do to get as far away from Reina. Ha 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 ha. I had a gut feeling that I couldn't let her laughter end. Because when that laughter ended, the moment I picked up on that feeling, my body moved by instinct. I sprang to my feet so fast I couldn't believe it and pushed Reina away with both hands. Reina was as light as a feather. Thrown about by the unbalanced weight of the axe, she was sent backwards as if she had been carried off by the wind. After confirming that out of the corner of my eye, I dashed off at full speed. I was the perfect picture of fleeing like a greased pig. Get away from me, Reina. Run away. Survive! I couldn't think of anything other than this. While I was running, I remembered I'd been holding onto the bat the entire time. Such a worthless weapon. I couldn't believe I'd forgotten about this weapon at such an important time. I sped even farther down the winding path. I didn't even feel myself gasping for breath or my legs getting heavy. My body understood it as well. If I didn't run away from here, I wouldn't live. I could hear the laughter of that simulacrum of Reina coming from behind me. It rang through the trees and in my head and slowly chiseled away at my sanity. The grove of the trees thinned out, my field of vision suddenly expanding. Where was this? For a moment, I was bewildered by the scenery I felt I knew, but I couldn't quite remember. I quickly realized it was the dam site. The fact that I dashed madly and ended up at a place like this gave me a bad feeling, like I was following someone's scripted plot. I had a good view of my surroundings, but I didn't see a single soul here. There was a terrible spot for someone on the run, but there was no better place for an attacker. My heart was already on the verge of bursting. The muscles in my legs were screaming, but I didn't care. If I stopped here, then they might not even be able to scream for much longer. Even still, I glanced back, looking for an excuse to rest. Reina wasn't there. Instead, I saw two villagers walking around. I breathed a sigh of relief that it wasn't Reina, but a third party. Except the voice inside me rang the alarm once again. Villagers walking around weren't suspicious in and of themselves, but it bothered me. They both wore rough-looking clothes. Empty-handed, they definitely gave the impression that they were just out for a walk. But at this time of day, two adults wandering around without a purpose, it was enough to raise questions. But more than anything else, those eyes. They weren't chit-chatting while walking. They were both silent, heading forward, looking in my direction. Was I at the end of my rope and had finally started imagining things? I should run away. That was probably the best choice. If they weren't involved, I'd lose them easily by running. If they were a part of the group after me, then they would come running after me. Either way, unless I hurried up, Reina would catch up with me. That's right, I was going to run. Deciding that, the moment I began to turn tail, both of them rushed towards me, as if they knew exactly what I was thinking. Somewhere inside me, I had jumped to the conclusion that Reina was the only thing I needed to be afraid of. I made the assumption that I didn't need fear anything else. But right now, I realized just how blatantly wrong I was. Suddenly, the story Oishi-san told me about the demons all leaving the village to hunt prey floated through the back of my mind. I could tell they were both coming after me without even turning around because of their frenetic footsteps. It was frightening, being unable to shake Reina off as she slowly closed in on me, but this didn't even compare. Being pursued with such violent ferocity, this straightforward horror was unparalleled. One of the pursuer's arms grazed my shoulder. Now, it wasn't just their frenzied footsteps, but also the distinct sound of their breathing that I could hear. No, I could practically feel them breathing on me. They were already right behind me. Calm down, Keiichi Maebara. Still running at full tilt, I felt the surrounding area go still. No, it felt like time itself had stopped. I turned my head back slightly in that frozen world, realizing how close my pursuers had gotten to me. I couldn't win against the legs of an adult. In less than the time it would take to blink twice, when this frozen time began moving again, they'd be right on top of me. On top of me. And then... Don't think about that, Keiichi. First, realize that you won't be able to shake them off like this. If the fact that you can't get away was a given, then you need to make a decision. Go with the right leg, or go with the left. You just need to decide which one. Let's go with the left. The moment I decided that, the temporal singularity burst into pieces. Right. Left. I swung the bat in a wide arc with my right arm. Using that inertia, I stopped and suddenly spun. What? The two of them were clearly startled, momentarily losing sight of me, both their outstretched arms ready to grab me, instead grasped at an empty space. The man on the right, I applaud him for being able to figure it out, spun around to the spot I shouldn't have been, and faced me in astonishment. But it was too late. I didn't even need to swing my bat. All I needed to do was extend my arms as I turned around. It was by no means a heavy blow, but it seemed like it had enough power behind it to knock him off his feet. And with that, that's where I'm going to end this episode. Hope you guys have enjoyed. Thank you for liking, commenting, and subscribing, and I will see you in the next one. Peace!